It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, and you can find a link to my work at emailrevealer.com. You can also get an autographed copy of my book there called How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. If you need an adoption investigation, a locate, asset search, current place of employment search, emailrevealer.com. This show is brought to you. There we go. CartKing.com. Yeah, these are the guys. CartKing.com. 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart some revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Like if you got a big building, an office building or a hospital or a warehouse, you put a little coffee cart there in the lobby, and you make some extra business, extra income coming in there real quick. CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, and food carts and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. Large, small, heated, secured outdoor retail or food kiosks, coffee kiosks, anything you need. They design and build them all, and they ship worldwide. So even if you're there in Ireland or England or something like that, they'll ship it to you. Check them out at cart-king.com or give them a call at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and get a good deal. Okay. We have with us today Charlie Robinson, and he's the author of the book, The Octopus of Global Control. Okay, I almost sold a different book there for you, Charlie. Sorry. Charlie, are you there?
I'm here. How are you doing?
The Octopus of Global Control. Tell us
Close
about...
enough.
Yeah, well, put in octopus, you'll find him. Like, that's what I've been doing all day, fishing for octopus. Now, tell us about yourself. Who is Charlie Robinson?
I'm a guy that just woke up gradually to the nonsense that's happening in this world. And doing what I do when you come across some sort of new important information, sort of very in the government media, thing that you're probably not supposed to know, but then you figure it out, you get very excited and you tell all your friends about it, and then they fit you for a tinfoil hat. So it was another one of these days where I had discovered some new thing, and I approached my mom and I said, hey, listen, have you heard about this? And I explained the whole whatever it was I found, and she just says, that's great. You've got a lot of information on all these different topics. What are you going to do with it? And it stumped me because I was like, it never occurred to me I had to do something with it. So after that conversation, I started to think about what I would do. What could I contribute to this? I don't have a radio show or a television platform or a podcast or anything like that. But I figure I'm pretty good with organizing lots of information, and I have a pretty messed up sense of humor, and I have a deep interest in these sort of alternative topics. So I decided I would put together a book as a way to sort of, if you're like me, you've had a Thanksgiving dinner and you brought up 9/11 and watched everyone at the table turn on you. And if they wanted to debate you, you didn't have all the information in front of you. So my thinking was I was going to put together a book about a variety of topics that had not just how I think things went down, but I was going to bring in the voices of experts, people that had been involved in some of these events or people that had a very unusual opinion about them. So the book features quotes from over 500 different people that had a sort of like a firsthand seat to what was going on in the world. Obviously, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Bushes and all those serious people on one side, but also Bill Hicks, George Carlin, Joe Rogan, Matt Taibbi, so people that had sort of a funny take on the news as well. And my thinking was that if if you could bring in the voices from other people and the person that you're trying to inform about all these new topics, if they were able to hear, well, look, don't take my word for it. Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize winning author Chris Hedges said this, and this about that particular event too. It gives you a little bit more credibility, and you find that the person might say, "Oh, really? They think that too? Well, take a look at it then." So that was the format of the book came out of that. But what really sort of got me going in this whole thing was John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I read that in 2007. And while I was reading that book, I was on vacation, but I was also working in Las Vegas selling new homes. And it was right when the boom, probably the tip of the boom, it was just starting to come down a little bit. And between reading John Perkins' book and seeing how the IMF and World Bank set up these funds, to enslave third world countries by promising, loaning money for them to build like a hydroelectric power plant. And then, and the government signs on for it. Like in the case of Ecuador, in his book, he was talking about Ecuador doing that. And the loan actually never goes to Ecuador. It goes to Halliburton or Bechtel, one of those engineering firms. And they build this power plant. And the numbers that they give the Ecuadorian people are never going to pencil out. And they wind up in debt to the IMF and World Bank. And so they use that leverage then to convince these countries to do what they need done, which is either vote on a UN resolution in their favor or allow that country to put a U.S. military base there or to privatize one of their industries like lumber or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I realized that what I was seeing in Las Vegas was just a smaller version of that. I was watching the banks lend money to people that had no business buying houses as expensive as they were, and fueling this whole housing boom through the media, in conjunction with the media, to pump this thing up, and then popping it, taking back all the tangible assets, taking back the houses from these people, and simultaneously destroying the homeowners while retaining the tangible house itself. It was, as I saw that, I was like, this is exactly what John Perkins was talking about. It's just on a regional level. So it was offensive to me. I mean, I had no idea I was participating in that.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but, a lot of those people had mortgage insurance too. So the banks didn't even lose any money on those deals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was such a scam, but, the banks are the worst. So in the book, I label, I identify 8 tentacles, being military, governmental, covert, physical, financial, media, spiritual, and scientific. And I think most people assume that the most dangerous one is the military, but I've always said that the most dangerous one is the banking arm, because it can enslave the entire world, and it has through central banking. So, So that was how I got started on this. Just sort of a freak combination of a friend of mine saying, hey, you should read this book, and living through like this fraud. Like if you've ever seen the movie or read the book, The Big Short, It was like a documentary. That's what it was. It was people coming in and saying, I'll buy 12 houses right now. And you're like, good Lord, this is fantastic. What a great day. And then, you find out later that they lost all their properties. They lost all their money. And it was horrible, and so I felt like maybe I could write, maybe in this book, I could sort of explain how that scam is run as well. And people will not fall for it the following, the next time it happens. And by the way, the real estate market it's happening again. Yeah. It's pumped up again. And this is a very dangerous time. And as soon as you start to see, the people that shouldn't really be able to afford a house getting loans to buy houses, you should be heading for the exit. So,
yeah, I grew up in Staten Island in the 80s. I was in my 20s, and I just, by coincidence, just happened to live in this area called New Springville, where the value of the properties were going up 25% a year. These little condos, and I was buying and selling condos like a lunatic. And the bottom dropped out. Reagan passed this, the capital gains tax. He changed the capital gains tax back then. And all these properties were worth less than we paid for them in this neighborhood on Staten Island, which was the fastest growing appreciating property in the whole country for a while. So when I lived here in Las Vegas and I saw this happening again, I told people, everyone was saying, well, real estate never goes down. And I says, no, yeah, it does. It goes down sometimes. And it can pop. The bubble can pop. But no one was listening to me at all. You had to be here for what went on here in Vegas during that real estate boom, bubble, whatever it was.
It was madness. There were people, I sold new homes. So I wasn't like a traditional real estate agent. I was one that worked for, a publicly traded builder, a couple of them. And we there's like model homes and a sales office there. And then the rest was dirt and you were building the houses. You would have sort of controlled release of blocks of houses. And, people knew when that was, you would tell your customers, like, we don't have anything to sell you right now, but we're going to have a release on Wednesday, at 9:00 in the morning. And you'd pull into work at 9:00 in the morning and there would be people sleeping in sleeping bags in line in front of your office. So they could be the first person to get at the houses. And I was like, this is great. It's not great. It's not great. I thought it was great because I was the person selling it. That is an unsustainable and an irrational way of buying houses. And it was, that's what it was. It was madness back then. I think, Dubai might have been the hottest market, but still, I mean, that had the same sort of makings of a engineered collapse as well. So yeah, I felt bad about it for a lot of years. I didn't do anything wrong to the people. And, like I said, I was drinking the Kool-Aid myself and lost 2 houses during the process, but I still felt bad. I still felt bad because the people came in and they were so excited to buy the houses. And then I would hear later that they weren't living there anymore because they had to have a short sale or they got foreclosed on and it was bad. But what really made me mad was about 3 years after the bust, it didn't all happen at once. It started to go down. It dropped pretty quick, but it kept going for about 3 years. I would see houses that were, foreclosures that would come on the market. And you'd call the agent about them. They'd say, "Oh, it's already gone." I'm like, "Oh, really? Who's are you selling to investors?" They're like, "Oh, Goldman Sachs is out here buying everything." And that made me furious because they had a huge vulture fund. You go in there and pick up as many houses as they could for, 20 cents on the dollar for what they were selling for during the boom. So, I'm not a fan of the big banks. I saw how they can take family and destroy them, but they can also take communities and destroy them. So, so that was one of the things that made me think about, what was happening and my part in it. And of course I had, by 2007, I had a pretty firm understanding of, what had really been going on in 9/11. And so I was sort of distrustful of anything connected to the government at that point. And I think with good reason. So all these factors kind of played in. And so I wrote this book because I felt like it would be something for people, to send to the people closest to them, like their family or maybe their close friends that look at them and shake their head like, you sound like a lunatic. And you're like, trust me, these things are actually happening. And, so my feeling was people could just buy this book, send it to their friends, send it to their family and let them read through it because it covers so many topics and you never know which topic is going to be the one that sort of shakes people out of their, sleepwalking. For me, it was Building 7 on 9/11 to see that come down. For somebody else, it might be that, that they find out that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was not a real thing, kicked off Vietnam, and maybe they had a family member, an uncle, a dad who died in Vietnam, and they realize that, and then they go, oh my God, if this is a lie, what else is a lie? So, I mean, that's sort of how it works with these topics. You get into one, you kind of get interested in one, and then that leads you to another and then another.
So let me ask you, because we talked off the air a bit, right? And you're still in real estate in Nevada because you work for a company that's on TV. They do these flips and stuff, but you don't want to talk about which one it is, I'm sure, right? Yeah. I'm the broker for a real estate brokerage in Las Vegas for sure. And,
we have investors. We have a big investor client that is sitting on the sidelines right now. They've got money. They're just waiting because I think they see what a lot of us see, which is some pain in the forecast.
Yeah, because
it's just hot. When a market gets so hot like this, it's regional too. I mean, so it's not just limited to. It's not to say that every market is ready to pop. San Francisco is for sure, probably Denver. But these places, it gets irrational. And once the building starts and the national home builders have all this land that they've acquired, they have to start building because they can't have it sit on their balance sheet for much longer. So they start building. And if things don't happen, if they don't get the sales, they'll find themselves in a lot of pain. And unfortunately, I don't like to say that, but that my feeling is I think that's where we're headed.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions though, because one is like right now, the house goes on the market. They're on the market for like a week, and it gets sold right away for cash, right?
Right.
Now, you think that are there still unoccupied houses, bank-owned houses that are unoccupied here that are sitting in inventory?
No, not many.
Okay.
I mean, if there are, then it's somebody has chosen not to stick a renter in there.
Okay, but not on a large scale like it was a couple of years ago, where there was whole like in the Southern Highlands where the entire neighborhoods were empty. And they weren't even trying to sell them or rent them or anything. They were just sitting there empty.
Yeah. I mean, that's the banks for you.
Yeah.
I worked for a mid-rise condo project in Las Vegas that had been about halfway built, and then it was taken over by the banks. And then they had the sales team, in which I was part of, to resell, to finish building out the complex and then resell them. And I have never experienced such frustration as trying to deal with the banks, trying to get them to do what we needed to do.
Right.
We needed them to sell these condos. They're barely capable of being banks. They're awful at real estate development. They're just the worst. So my feeling is that if you can get the banks out of the equation, however you can do it, go for it. Get rid of them, because they're the problem. I mean, they're the biggest problem.
Yeah, I don't know, how old are you?
I'm 45.
Okay, I'm 55 years old, so I've been in business my whole life, and banking as it is today is a whole different world from banking back in New York when I was a kid in New York, dealing with the banks. It's a whole other world, it's just incompetence seems to be the rule of what they're trying to do now. It's like almost like a McDonald's kind of setup. I was going to ask you though, so you think though there's going to be another crash here in Nevada, because rents right now have gone crazy, here they can't even rent anymore. You think this is going to turn around? Maybe the rents will go back down too?
I think you'll see. The first indicator will be, yes, it's really hot. Yes, there's a lot of transactions, and the short window of time where houses are on the market. That's usually a good indicator that it's getting overheated. But as soon as you start to see those loan programs, the banks start offering the loan program.
Yeah, they started already. No income check.
Yeah, exactly. Once they start doing that, they're doing that because all of the natural and well-funded and good credit scoring buyers have already bought, and there's nobody left, but they need to keep selling these houses. Then they start to lower the requirements and start bringing in people that are sort of, they shouldn't be buying a house. And once they're buying a house, it's almost over at that point. So I'll tell you a story about something that happened in 2006 when I was in new home sales for a big publicly traded builder. We went into a sales meeting, and our sales manager said that we were going to do, we have incentive money, right? So this like an imaginary pool of money that you can use to a variety of ways. So the house is $500,000. You have, in this particular case, we had $100,000 of incentive money. So you can use that and take it right off the price of the house and then just pay $400,000 for the house. Or you can use some of it for closing costs, and you can use some of it to buy down your interest rate, and whatever's left over from that, you can take off the price of your house. And those things are all legal and they're normal, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But this one meeting we went into, this is where things started to stall out a little bit on the market. They said, well, we're going to free you up to use that money, that $100,000 pool of money, to do whatever you need with it. If you need to pay off the husband and wife's credit cards and you need to pay off their car loans, and then we run their numbers again to see if their debt to income ratios got better, that's what we can do. And I was like, I raised my hand and I was like, have we cleared this with our legal department? And I will never forget what my sales manager said. I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy crap, this is not good. This is not okay. It's fraud. Yeah. Straight up mortgage fraud. And we had real estate license at play. We couldn't do that. I actually never closed one of the houses with that program because I wouldn't do it. And we pushed back against it, and they finally wound up scrapping it. But there were lots of houses that went through. We paid off a guy's Porsche, so he could qualify for this house. And it was insane. Of course, I was later fired.
But let me ask you a question. How does you're paying off the guy's debt to raise his credit score, but how do you know that if there's no closing before you do that, how do you protect yourself?
You don't.
Okay, great. Hey, sign me up.
I mean, I saw a person that we and all the salespeople talk to each other. We know what's going on. We know what's happening. But there was a case where I know someone that sold a house to a guy, paid off the guy's credit card and his car loan, his wife's credit card and her car loan.
Yeah,
and then they bought the house. They paid the $500,000 for the house. They didn't get to take that off the price. But what do they care? They just got basically a free loan. Yeah. They have no debt anymore. And now you run the numbers and like, this is a great candidate. Where have they been all our lives? We need to sell them a house. Well, of course they have no debt. You just spent $100,000 to pay off all their debt. Like it was crazy. But when you see that, that's because things aren't selling. When you have to do things like that, that's not. It lures people in, but you should be wondering, why am I getting lured in?
When you see them do that,
good market. If it's such a good deal, why do you have to give me $100,000 worth of items or freebies to come in and buy this house? So that is something that just took me working through it and seeing it in person to really understand how it works. And that's no way to run a business.
Listen, we got to take
anyway. I felt bad. The people that had their credit cards and cars paid off, and then they lost their house. They're like, so what? I can write it off.
Yeah, right.
I do a short sale. I don't have to pay for it. Got my cars paid for. Got my credit card debt taken care of. So they were fine. But it's just an unsustainable way of doing business.
Okay, we got to take a commercial break. But the next time they offer a deal, give me a call. I'm going to jump at it. Okay, we'll be right back. We're talking to Charlie Robinson. And now a word from our sponsors. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe add new point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, or bring in revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services to your office building, warehouse, or lobby? CartKing.com is the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food carts, and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. That's www.cart-king.com. Give them a call at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. So you go to the website, CartKing.com, you check out their different designs and models. You pick out which design applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and ship it worldwide. CartKing.com. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. Order today at PureSoapFlakes.com, greenhome.com, Amazon.com, or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Hey you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed, and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Charlie Robinson, and the book is called The Octopus of Global Control. So now, Charlie, you mentioned that you said you woke up. You've been awake for a couple of years. So how many years has it been?
Oh, God, I'd love to say that on the morning of September 11th, 2001, I had it all figured out, but it took a couple of years. I'd say maybe 2005. I came to understand that official story was totally unbelievable. And but after that, it was incremental. It was you just dig in one topic after the other. And I think, one thing that you can see, or one thing that I see every day that reinforces how absolutely corrupted the system is we're living in is the mainstream media. Or I should say corporate media. I don't know how mainstream it is anymore, but to see them, to see how it's changed from, God, just when I was a kid, I remember watching the nightly news, and you just sort of had the assumption that what they were telling you was the truth. As we got older, after 9/11, after things like that, after the wars, it's become pretty clear to me that the corporate media is like the de facto public relations arm of the White House. Maybe not today, maybe not since Trump got in office, but it had been, that ever since, the Bushes and Obama and people like that. It just seemed like there was no sort of actual investigation going on there. It was more like people were just reading off teleprompters, and it's pretty obvious that the story you're getting from them on your nightly news is totally corrupted. And like there was a belief, I think, especially like when in our parents' generation, that the nightly news would cover the most important stories happening in the country, or maybe even the world, for that particular day. The assumption was if it's not in the nightly news, then it must not have been that important. And that is a huge, and that today, I think a lot of people still feel the same way. Like, oh, if what you're saying is true, it would be on the nightly news. No, it wouldn't. No, if it's something that contradicts with the plan that the people that own the mainstream media have for us, then it most definitely will not be on the nightly news. So there's one aspect of it is the media completely lying to us, and the other aspect is the lying by omission, meaning not talking about the actual stories they should be talking about, but focusing on a dog that fell down the well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right now I'm watching these kids in this little tunnel, this cave over there in the Philippines. Thailand.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a story that is really interesting. So I don't mean to belittle them. But,
yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking about, like, if you watch the NBC nightly news, and they go on a story about some guy who got, we're going to wrap up because he's got the greatest Christmas light decoration in town. You're like, seriously, that's what we're talking about? We're not talking about the fact that there's like child trafficking.
Well, then let me ask you then where did you get your alternative information that made you conclude that 9/11 was an inside job?
I think the first introduction to that was probably Loose Change.
Okay.
That movie. Since then, it's been sort of a combination of a bunch of different people. I'd say I mean, Alex Jones, to a certain extent, I think he gets a little crazy at times. And I understand he's running a business and he's now got this big business. But there was a time when I think that the information was a little bit more unfiltered back, 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Right now, I don't know if I would necessarily hang my hat on the things that he's saying 100%. But just hearing different voices, people that have had, I like David Icke. I got to be honest. He's been. I like him because for 20 years he's been screaming about topics. He said, "This is how it is. This is what's happening. This is where they're going with it." And now, after you've had the ability to sort of look back on the things that he had been saying over the years, he's been proven right on a whole lot of things. I know there's some controversial aspects of him that people sort of roll their eyes about, the reptilians and things like that. But
well, more than that, because I know I've contacted Ike with information about stuff he's put out there that I know is false, and he continues to put it out there. And even Jones, he testified in court that he's a performance actor. And on the deposition with his wife there, where his wife turned out to be an escort, and he said, "No, we investigated. She's not." And she says, "Yeah, I was." I mean, there's a lot, And as far as
madness, for sure.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, that's the thing. See, I woke up when I was like 16 years old. The Lower East Side of New York City. I went down Yippie headquarters. The anarchists in New York City. And I learned about these were the guys who, like A.J. Weberman, who found that the Watergate burglars were involved in the JFK assassination. I learned about the Trilateral Commission and about the military-industrial complex and these kind of things. But today, our sources of it, and they put together a newspaper overthrow and Yipster Times and stuff like that, with research articles, real information. But today, there's so much white noise out there, which the source of this information we're getting is just so convoluted. These YouTubers, like I've met a lot of these people and I've dealt with them. And I would say that I've doubled down. I was skeptical before, but after knowing these people, I say double down your skepticism and double it down again, because half of these people are just full of it.
Yeah, for sure. There's accurate information out there. There's disinformation out there.
Yeah.
There's accidental disinformation out there. Somebody that has good intentions and thinks they have the right sources and gets it wrong. And my policy has been, I reserve the right to change my mind on a topic if I am provided with new or better information about it. I'm not going to, I want to know the truth. If it's the truth and I figure it out, great. If it's the truth that somebody else figures out and it is the actual truth, great. I just want to get it right. And I acknowledge that when I write, like this book is a big book. It's got a lot of topics and I'm going to be wrong about some of the aspects of it. I have to be upfront about that. Not intentionally wrong, but it's going to turn out that some of the things that I'm saying are wrong. Because when you're dealing with these sensitive topics, you've got the best disinformation agency in the world, the CIA, working against you with an army. So if you think you're not going to get it wrong, you're being a little arrogant, because it's like we're going to make mistakes on this. But so do I not write anything for fear that I'll have one mistake? Someone says, "Oh, you got that wrong, so the whole book must be a lie." No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do my best to get to the bottom of it and see if I can find the truth in these aspects. And if something changes in the book, I'll be the first to admit it. Hey, listen, this was wrong. I should revise that. And
it's funny.
I know what you're saying. There's a lot of anybody can have a YouTube channel, right. and it doesn't make them a journalist. It doesn't make them like an investigative reporter and everything. Like, obviously, you're like in the perfect spot for this because you are an investigator. You know how to, you probably have a very well defined or bullshit detector.
Yeah.
From all the work that you do. So you're able to sort of weed out the nonsense. I mean, probably better than anybody, I would imagine.
But, it's funny. I was talking to Ted Rubenstein one time. Ted worked for Mae Brussels and Dave Emery and the Larry Fund publications, a real, legitimate guy. And I said, "Well, what do you think about so-and-so?" And he goes, "Just like everybody else, he's right half the time." You know what I mean? And it really, changed my outlook on so much. You're right. Listen, we're right about half the time. Most of it's opinion and stuff like that. But then again, too, there's some of these people out there that are just either crazy. A lot of these guys are just crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Someone says, "Oh, you saw that on YouTube?" Everyone on YouTube's crazy. Not everybody on YouTube.
Not everyone.
Is crazy, but believe me, there is a percentage that are out of their minds. Okay, so there's no doubt about that. Some of this stuff, and you also have to wonder about people's intentions. Like, what are they trying to, do they have a agenda that they're trying to, push? I mean, so people, whenever I'm like critical of Trump, I'll get a ton of emails saying, you're the worst. How dare you? I'm like, listen, I hate all of them equally. Don't make the assumption that because I'm not a fan of Trump, that means that I am a fan of Hillary Clinton. Like, I put them all in the same category. I don't trust any of them, and I don't like any of them. They're in that position. They've bubbled up to the top of these important political and financial powers structures, not because they're good people, but because they're psychopathic, and they rise up because people have dirt on them that can control them. So, they're not in that position of power accidentally. They're up there. And by the way, when I say up there, I don't mean the president, because the president is not the top of the pyramid by any stretch, but the people way above him. They allow these people to get into positions of power, and they feed their ego with this, putting them in Congress or putting them in the presidency even. But they're all controlled on some level, and some differently than others. But when you get to those positions of power, if you ever wonder, like, why are our politicians so screwed up? It's not the job of being a politician that makes these people screwed up. It's that they're screwed up people to begin with, and that's why they get into politics. Because where would a psychopath go if they love controlling people? They'd get into politics. They'd get into banking. They'd get into media, and so that's where I've always sort of said that, like, people say, what is it about being a Boy Scout troop leader that makes people pedophiles? Nothing. It's that if you're a pedophile, you go where the hunting's good. You become a Boy Scout troop leader. So this is how you get these, like a sea of maniacs in Washington is not accidental. It's because that's where you would go if you were a maniac. You would go there to feed your need for control over other people.
Well, then, like, how do you react to this? Are you involved in local politics? Or are you involved in any kind of what do you see as a solution? What is your alternative political or economic solution?
Well, no, I'm not involved in local politics. I have no desire to get into politics because I just don't like I don't like the framework of the system. I don't like it when you see, I have no interest in directly being involved in it. I'm content to stand on the sidelines and throw rocks at both parties because I wouldn't want to be surrounded by people that got into that. I mean, I think on the local level, maybe there are more people that are like, listen, I'm just trying to help out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do my thing. And my contribution to this is going to just be the writing that I do. I don't want to go to city council meetings. I don't have any interest in doing that or becoming if you think you're going to get into the system in order to change the system, you're fooling yourself because it's the system itself that is the problem. I like the ideas of the anarchist ideas, but not like I don't mean the wearing the black mask and throwing Molotov cocktail type. I think that's sort of a different type. But I like the concept of like, I'm living my life, leave me alone,
Right.
And because as we're seeing lately, the government has been creeping into all sorts of aspects of our lives that they have no business being involved in, like talking about forcing people to vaccinate their kids if they don't want to in states and preventing them from going to school until they have that, or instituting Common Core into the schools and withholding funding from the counties that don't allow that that don't put Common Core in. They won't give them money. So all these weird things, you just want to stand up and go, why are you guys involved in this? Why is the federal government involved in these things? And I just think there's just a massive overreach. I mean, I'm in favor of smaller government. I don't know why we have to have 180 military bases all over the country, all over the world. That seems like a colossal waste of time. It seems like we're marching in the footsteps of like every empire before us. They've always fallen after they've expanded. They've expanded militarily too far. They've corrupted their money system, and that's how it happens. That's how the empires fall down. And like, it's obvious to anyone that's being objective that we're headed down that path, and it's just it's unsustainable. The money printing and the military conquests it just at some point it has to fall apart. And by the way, we're not making any friends around the world with our antics either. So nobody's going to come to our aid when we need it, when things start to go bad.
We make friends with the dictators. They love us.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
But now the thing is, okay, I started off as an anarchist, too. That's why my first reaction was, okay, become an anarchist. But now, the thing is, now, how would you wrest control of the people in power right now? How would you take away control from them and put it into the hands of the average citizen?
I mean, I think I would start by trying to put them in prison, the ones that are doing the horrible things. You've got a Justice Department that is utterly corrupted. It just doesn't do what it says it's going to do. You have FBI is corrupted. The CIA is corrupted. I don't know that you can count on the Justice Department to step in and say,
sure.
All right, we're going to take care of these politicians that are pedophiles, that are laundering money, that are selling government secrets and doing all these things. We're going to take them all. We're going to charge them Nuremberg style and put them in prison that would be a great start, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I know that there's been a lot of talk lately about Q and the sealed indictments and all that stuff. That sounds great. I'd like to see it happen.
That's not going to happen.
Now it's all just sort of
yeah, that's not going to happen. But by the way, there's no indication that those are all even indictments. Okay, those are just sealed filings. They could be just
exactly.
Yeah, it could be a couple of cases.
Cartoon drawings, for all we know.
Yeah, it could just be a couple of cases, where they just have a bunch of motions and search warrants sealed. So there's no 40,000 indictments. It's insane. And Q, if Q is real, the guy's betraying his security clearance, they could track him down in a half hour. You know what I mean?
That's what I've been thinking too. I feel like as people that are sort of in the, examining these sorts of alternative topics, we've been lied to so many times with so many people. I'm just going to have to withhold my my approval or my belief in the Q concept until I actually see something tangible, until people actually start going to prison for things like that. Because up until that point, I just can't take their word for it without any evidence. I really, it all sounds good, but I'm skeptical only because it's like, we're working on it. Trust us. Trust the plan.
Right.
I can't just blindly trust the plan. I hope there's a plan. I hope what they're saying is the real thing. Because if it is, then it might be, a way to flesh out all of these criminals that have infested the political system. But until I actually see some tangible results, I'm just going to say I don't know on that one. Like, it just sounds a little too much like wishful thinking.
It's a shame because these are well-meaning people, and they want to see an end to this global pedophilia, and I think Satanism is involved in too as well. And they're rightfully outraged over this, but then they're just they're gullible, and they fall for something like this Trump and this right wing. Do you mention Agenda 21 in your book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a weird Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Yeah, that's a crazy topic. I mean, that was what.
Have you read Agenda 21?
No.
Yeah, you'll read it, man. There's nothing in there. There's nothing in there, man. Read it. I read the whole thing. It's 480 pages. You can sit down in a day or two and read the whole thing. And all the stuff you hear about the chemtrails and population control and sending people into making people leave from rural to go to the cities, that's all nonsense. None of that's in there. And I've challenged so many people. I said, well, what page is that on? Show me the page. I can pull it up right now. There's nothing like that in there. It's a bunch of harmless. It's non-binding. There's no. And it's a bunch of harmless stuff about, we need to empower women to be economically powerful and appoint a committee to study this and study that, give us more money. But there's nothing in there to be afraid of.
That's funny.
Yeah. And how many times do we hear people quote it? Read Agenda 21. Okay, well, I did. Where is it? Anyway.
Government overreach. I say, leave the people alone. We'll take care of ourselves.
But then you would still be a capitalist. You would still be a capitalist.
Yeah. You've got to have the banking system needs to be completely reformed, though, because the way it's set up now, that was one thing that really sort of shook me, was the understanding the concept of fiat currency and the central banks and all of that component, because of course we're not taught anything about banking in school, and I think that's by design. And we should really know how that system works.
Oh yeah, that's why you'll have 10 people that don't have the first clue what communism is or what socialism is. And just this bizarre things you hear on the internet, these bizarre theories. But what about the concept of a state bank like they have in North Dakota? Have you looked into that?
Well, I like the idea of the community banks. I think that's a good option. I like savings, like anything that's not credit unions. By the way, when I complain about the banks, I'm not talking about like the retail banks, like a Bank of America on the street corner, down from your house. I'm talking about the Wall Street banks, the bigger banks, not the commercial banks, the ones that deal with other countries, other banks, and things like that. That's Bank of International Settlements, and in Basel, Switzerland, that's the epicenter of the banks. That's the craziest place in the world. There's the people that work at the Bank of International Settlements cannot be sued for life, cannot be frisked, you're not allowed to check their bags. You're not allowed to go in the building. They have diplomatic immunity forever. They can't be prosecuted for any crimes. The laws don't apply inside this place. They don't even have to let any of the Swiss officials into the building itself. So it's like, God, what are you guys doing in there? Like, if it's so secret, if you're just a bank, if you're just doing banking operations, why do you need all those protections? Why do you need all those restrictions? Yeah.
Remember when the president or the head of the IMF, they got in trouble for raping that housekeeper in that hotel?
Yeah, Dominic Strauss-Kahn. Yeah, total setup. I mean, I'm sure
really?
He's a complete scumbag, but I mean, it was like the making. I mean, you're just like, come on.
Well, you know what? Because I found out then he has some kind of a special provision where he can just show up at the airport and get a first-class ticket on any plane and anywhere he wants to go, no passport or nothing.
Yeah,
whoever heard of this stuff?
That's the sort of protections that the guys at the BIS have as well. They have total diplomatic immunity. To the point where, if they get pulled over in a car, the police can't even ask them for their driver's license. So it's nuts. They just say, I'm a diplomat. You don't have the right to stop me. Yeah, they can get on an airplane without any hassles. But the one thing that made me laugh was the fact that they can never be sued. This is after they leave their job there. They can still never be sued, which is crazy.
Well, but then, do you have a plan of action to remove us from the system?
Well, I mean, I think the beginnings of it might be found in cryptocurrencies. I like the concept of it. I don't know if my suspicious little brain makes me think that maybe it was concocted by an organization that doesn't want to be known, and that maybe it is a trap potentially. But the idea of it being an accounting of the amount of total coins in circulation, to me sounds like a good idea, only because we can see what happens when you have a printing press like the Federal Reserve has. There's no incentive to ever stop printing, and that's how you lose 96% of the value over the centuries, by just printing money like crazy, and it just destroys the value. So the concept of currencies where there's a restricted supply appeals to me, but I don't know enough about the technical components of it, whether or not the system can be rigged at some point. Also, not completely sold on it not being a trap for people to sort of get everyone into a digital currency, and then, then they've got your money. So
yeah, right, yeah, that's a whole other thing too. And even with that universal basic income too, that's kind of disturbing too, because you can be restricted from that. If you can be penalized and not be allowed to be a part of it if you break their rules. You're not going along, right?
Yeah. Well, and you see that in China right now. They have a social media index where you're
right,
based on how good you are to the state. It's crazy. We might be headed that way. Hopefully not, but
Well, we're running out of time. We only got about 7 or 8 minutes left. Where would you like to go with this conversation?
Well, I wanted you talked about the McMartin preschool, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm heading over to California right now. I'm talking to a witness over there.
Yeah, I have to say that I heard you on Lift the Veil, I think, talking about it. And I remember, I grew up in California, and I remember being a kid and hearing about that, and then not hearing anything about it for a long, long time. And then after I got out of college, I lived in Manhattan Beach. And one day something came up. I saw something like in the newspaper. This was years later. And I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot that place was right here. And I used to drive by where that school was. And it just, I remember just getting creeped out about it. And then hadn't heard about it for years and years until I heard you talking about it. I want to know what you found. I want to know what,
well, real quick, because first I did figure out Lift the Veil. I did a really good presentation on my own show. I think it's called McMartin Preschool. James Woods. I mentioned James Woods in it too, because he did the movie about it, the whitewash movie. But I found the guy who did the geological survey with the ground penetrating radar, the first guy who showed up on the scene with Ted Gunderson before there were any arrests, and he found nothing. No one's interviewed this guy in 40 years. I located him, and he tells me, he sent me a document with a statement there. He went back after they raised the property because they had told him that the detached garage was not part of the school. The McMartins, they hadn't been arrested yet. And the families were out there. It was chaos, when he was wheeling his machine around. And he went back to it after they raised that garage, and he found a hand-dug room, a hand-dug basement with a hand-dug staircase underneath that garage. So we know for a fact, and I'm talking to someone else who also saw it too, who has more of a connection to the property than these geologists. So this is a breaking investigation that's about to be uncovered. I'm very excited about it.
Go get them, man.
I know.
Seriously.
That's
horrible. That is something that is unfortunately something I learned through the writing of the book, and also just sort of looking at all these things, is that there is a network of, children that are trafficked globally.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Thing, and it's a horrible thing, and something people don't want to talk about, but it's hard to ignore it because it is there, and it is as real as a heart attack. And I'm really glad to hear that you're out there trying to, I'm glad to hear that somebody hasn't forgotten about it.
Now, the Octopus of Global Control also has a Facebook page, right? Now, how is your information being received? Like, you must get a lot of these Q types and these Trump types to tell you, the 40,000 or the 1,400 pedophile arrests under Trump, all that kind of stuff. How is the book being received? Are they getting it?
Yeah, I've actually been unbelievably surprised at how supportive people have been. Every now and then I'll get an email saying, how dare you talk about Trump that way? You're whatever. Like, I don't like the guy's personality before he got in office. It's less about his politics and more about that personality type that I don't like. But aside from that, I've had a lot of people say that they thought the book was funny because, and that allowed them to get through some of the really sort of darker parts of it, was the fact that you could bring in some humor. And so the response has been overwhelming. And I'm, of course, very, very humbled and grateful for that.
That always helps. And I learned that with the Yippies, too. With the Yippie Pie Man, he used to hit those guys in the face with a pie and stuff like that. And, to do those kind of stunts, publicity stunts, to get people's attention, get it out there. Now, what about appearances? Do you have any appearances coming up? The way you're going to be talking about the book? Or speaking gigs? You seem like a good speaker.
I'm going to be at the Dollar Vigilante seminar in Acapulco for Anarchapulco. So I'll be there in 2019.
Oh, how nice. Now, wait a minute. With Acapulco, what's this? What do you got going on down there?
Oh, yeah. So Jeff Berwick, he's the owner of Dollar Vigilante. He has he's putting on a seminar. There's two parts of it. The first part is the Dollar Vigilante. I'll be speaking there, and that's in Acapulco, Mexico in February of 2019. I think it'll be the 5th or 6th year for that. And then right a couple days after that is Anarchapulco. So it's the Anarchy Convention in Acapulco. So check it out. I don't know if I'll be speaking at that, but I'll definitely be at Dollar Vigilante. But it's a trip. People should check that out. It would be right up it'll be right up your alley for sure. You should, they have good speakers. Ron Paul was a speaker there before, and they'll bring in 30 or 40 speakers and a lot of crypto guys there. So interesting. I've never been. Got to check it out. I'm excited. Jeff invited me to go to speak at his Dollar Vigilante event. Yeah. And then the book is available at Amazon as a Kindle and paperback, and also on Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, we're going to have a link to it at the Opperman Report bookstore. We're going to have it on there too as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Charlie, thank you so much, man. Okay. And
Thanks.
if something new comes in.
I appreciate you having me on. I really do.
No, it's a lot of fun. And if something new comes up, give me a call. We'll put you right on the air.
Awesome. Tks so much. Take care.
Take it easy. Nice meeting you. Then you got Charlie Robinson. The book is called Octopus of Global Control. We were neighbors. Okay, I just found out talking to this guy off the air. My old house in Seven Hills was like probably 50 feet, 45 feet away from his house in Seven Hills. When we both lived in, it was called Palermo West in Seven Hills in Henderson, Nevada. Very, very close to each other. Anyway, like he was saying, I'm heading out to McMartin Preschool to do this investigation. And I'm really frustrated. So, you know how I get all depressed and stuff like that. We got me and Vic are going to visit some colleges. And the way it is, we're not going to have enough money to go do the McMartin thing unless we get some more cash. Or I borrow money, from brother. Anyway, what are you going to do? I just do the best I can and just keep chugging along. All right. I heard that, AJ Benza was talking about me too this morning, but he was saying good things. So that's always good. Not like that Lift the Veil, man, where they were talking crap about me. I got some crazy emails in that Lift the Veil group, man. I got to tell you. But I like Nathan. He's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. I don't know all this stuff. Anyway, if you like tonight's show and the Octopus of Global Control with Charlie Robinson, and I know we got a good segment on for this too. And if you like the shows, check out OppermanReport.com. That's where we have our members section. And by supporting the members section, exclusive content, and got a bunch of interviews, the Lift the Veil interview is going to be in there. That's what keeps the shows on the air, keeps them live, and keeps them free. And on YouTube and Spreaker and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do that. I just have a member section. I wouldn't have any free shows at all. And thank God we had that Cartkin guy come along and sponsor the show for us. Otherwise, the show would be off the air pretty much. I'd just be doing the member section. Anyway, we're trying to get out there to McMartin Preschool. They're pretty much just waiting for me, man. It's like picking the low-hanging fruit, just waiting for me to go over there and pick it off the tree. Well, what are you going to do? You can support this effort, by going to OppermanReport.com or email me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com, and I'll give you a membership. I'll give you 13 months for $60. And I need like 3 or 4 memberships if we could do this. We could spend a couple of days down there. And also, too, we were hoping, to go up to Stanford for this whole Arliss Perry investigation, speak to the cops up there and nose around a bit. But now that's definitely off the table. I don't think we'll, unless, a big chunk of money came in, we could pull that off. Otherwise, definitely not. So thank you so much, guys. Good night. Thank you, Charlie Robinson, the Octopus of Global Control. Check that out. Good night. emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Emailrevealer.com, digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. You can also make a donation at OppermanReport.com. If you want to support the show and become a member, I can give you a discount. I'll give you 13 months for $65 if you email me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at OppermanReport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.